Here we are on Black Country Extra. It's day 5 of Alcohol Awareness Week, and we've got Dave and Declan and the guests, so I'm going to pass you over to them.
Thanks, Billy. My name's Dave, forever an alcoholic. Can we just start off, Billy, by saying a big thanks to yourself and to all here at Black Country Extra for giving us this opportunity to come along and help us raise the awareness of AA, and particularly this week in Alcohol Awareness Week, which is an initiative being championed by a charity called Alcohol Change and supported by the likes of ourselves and all the NHS. We're shortly going to be introducing one of our members who's going to share their story with us. But before I do that, I'd like to ask Dec just to read our preamble, which is what we do at the start of every meeting. And this basically tells people very simply what AA is, what it does, and I guess what it doesn't do. So, Dec, over to you, mate.
That's great, Dave. Thanks very much. My name is Dec and I'm an alcoholic, and this is the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve the common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thanks, Dec. That's great. And could we now get our first guest, to introduce themselves today, please?
Yeah, hi, Dave. Yeah, my name's Eric, and I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome, Eric. Welcome to the studio, and thanks for coming along to share your experience, strength and hope with us. Can I ask you to start off, Eric, by giving us some idea about your background, your childhood and stuff like that?
Yeah. I was born in Lancashire, an ordinary working-class family, or I thought we were quite normal. Both my parents left school at the age of 14 with no qualifications, which is, I think, was a fairly common thing in the 1930s. I grew up in Lancashire. I went to technical college. Somehow I got away to Polytechnic. Had a sort of working life after that. And I'm now 63 years of age, with happily married for 40 years, 3 grown-up children. And I've had my trials and tribulations, but life is okay at the moment.
We'll come on to that, no doubt. Can you then... Can you give us some idea when you had your first drink and how that progressed from there?
Yeah, first drink, very young. I remember that quite clearly, actually. My parents were very sociable people. My dad was very busy in the local community, various organisations, golf clubs, various societies, and spent a lot of time out. My mum was very busy socially as well, doing all those things, and she was quite big in the Girl Guide movement. And they used to have parties at home. And I remember at a very young age, probably about 8 or 9, finding an abandoned drinks trolley downstairs in the sitting room and helping myself. And I can't remember a lot about it, but I know that the drink had a positive effect on me at that age. And I think shortly after that, probably around Christmas time, one of my grandmothers came round and decided that she'd like a glass of port. And I remember saying, oh, I'd like a glass of port as well. And I remember a debate in the family about whether that was appropriate or not, and it was suggested that I might have to like some lemonade in the port. And I knew, even at that very young age, that lemonade in my port was not what I wanted.
So how did that progress? I mean, I thought I started young. But how did that progress, Eric, over the years?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to mislead you, think that I was a boozer at the age of 9, but no. I think the seed had probably been sown. I think it really kicked in. I didn't do well at school. I was a dyslexic kid before dyslexia was invented. And I had a hard time at school because I could never get the hang of spelling, and nobody could get the hang of reading my writing. But somehow I managed to get sufficient CSE grade 1s, which counted as an O-level.
Well.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. I went to a secondary modern school, and I was factory fodder, there was no doubt about that. But somehow I managed to get to technical college. And I remember going to Wigan as a 16-year-old and starting at technical college. And with one or two of the older boys, I was encouraged to discover that at the age of 16, you could get served at lunchtime in the pubs in Wigan. And that resulted in me being quite a reasonably conscientious student in the mornings and a bit of a sleepy one in the afternoons.
And when did you realise then, or did you find you were drinking more than your mates at the time, or were you just sort of...
I think it was different for me because I don't know what it was. I've come to the conclusion that I didn't understand life. I just felt that I was an outsider. I think I needed something else to enable me to blend in and sort of take away my sort of social anxiety. And I think even at that early age I was medicating myself, and I thought that I was fitting in. I thought that it made me relaxed and sociable. But looking back on it, I think that people must just have thought that I was a prat. And I know that, my lecturers didn't understand me. I remember going away on a field trip to the Isle of Arran on a biology field trip. And getting drunk every night and sort of damaging property, breaking a door, and just by acting the goat, really. I think I was. I mean, I'm not saying I was the only one that got drunk, but I think it was more prevalent with me, and probably for not good motives. I wasn't just joining in. I don't know what I was doing. Right? I wasn't normal.
So you're a teenager at college there. So moving on then into later life, how did your drinking progress there?
Well, it became increasingly chaotic. I got away to Polytechnic, so at technical college, I did an ordinary national diploma in science, which was supposedly A level. And I passed that, but not with a particularly good grade. But I discovered that didn't get you off to university, it didn't enable me to get a job because I was living in rural Lancashire. There weren't all that many jobs about. I wasn't equipped to travel looking for work. I decided, or it was decided, that I could stay on for another year at Polytechnic and do A-levels. And I did A-levels in science subjects, physics, chemistry and biology. And I think I did that because to get around the writing problem, because there were subjects that didn't involve as much writing. So it wasn't that I had a particular affinity for science. I'm probably more of an arts guy. History, geography, those things would be of more interest to me. But I found those easier to do given my dyslexia. And I ended up with 3 very poor grades at A-level, but it was good enough in those days to get you into university, or polytechnics, as we then call them. And I went off to Leicester Polytechnic to train as a surveyor. Or effectively probably an estate agent, and I just couldn't hack it. I could not cope with being a student at that level. I used to get work come back covered in redding, spelling mistakes highlighted, and I just felt sort of isolated. But the one thing that I did have was drink. So I just got very heavily into the drinking. My drinking was chaotic. We used to get grants in those days when you went off to university, reasonable amount of money, and all mine went on drinking.
Booze. Okay.
So the drinking got worse, got more chaotic, and I ended up getting failing all my exams in the first year of Polytechnic, having a year out doing various odd jobs. I worked as a labourer in a yard labourer for a big painting contracting firm. I spent a year working in repertory theatre. Sort of helping build scenery and doing stage crew work, and I really quite enjoyed that because I was meeting lots of interesting people, and it was stimulating in that way. But it wasn't a career, and I stayed in Leicester doing various odd jobs. I got a job in engineering, and I lived in Highfields, Leicester, which was the red light district where all the prostitutes plied their trade. And I remember,
this is a family show, John.
Yeah, well,
John.
I'm not going to dwell on the prostitutes. I didn't know any of them socially, but I was moving from sort of dodgy bedsit to dodgy bedsit, spending a lot of money on drink.
Okay, moving on then. I know you've been married for a long time.
Been married
now
for 40 years, and Nikki, my wife, is absolutely lovely. And she was around in my chaotic drinking, and she obviously saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I realised that my life wasn't going anywhere. She was a good student. She stuck at college. She got a professional qualifications, got a job. And for some reason, as I say, she saw something in me that I didn't quite see in myself. And we got married, and I ended up thinking, working in engineering isn't really the thing. Engineering was going through a hard time in those days. I was regularly doing sort of short time working. There was no career structure for me. So I decided to look for a job, and I've always had this urge to help other people. And I decided that I wanted to be a probation officer. But given my background and lack of qualifications, they weren't keen to employ me. And somehow I got rescued by the Metropolitan Police Service. And I went off to London, and they gave me a blue suit and a big hat and a whistle. And they gave me a life, really, which is, that was the start of a career, and I've stuck with it for the best part of 30 years. Yeah, and Nikki is still around now, and I put that woman through a hell of a lot. I love her to bits. We've had our 40th wedding anniversary this year, and she's amazing.
Yeah. I've had the pleasure of meeting her. She's a lovely lady. You're punching above your weight there, Eric, I have to say. So, I'm sure through over those years, drinking has caused you issues. When did you first realise that you had a problem? I mean, I know you thought in your student years that you were drinking more than your friends, but when did you realise, through that sort of 40 years that you had a bit of a problem?
Well, I think there's no doubt that the illness we have is a progressive illness. My drinking was chaotic in my youth. I think after I had my big career change, I learnt to become a functioning alcoholic. I was able to drink, but at the same time get on with life and perform at work and do those things. And I split it into two parts, because at work, initially when I did my training at Hendon, I mean, the police, we're talking about the 1980s, and the police was largely unreformed in those days. I think we'd had people like Robert Mark who'd sorted out the corruption, but there was still a big culture of drinking. And when I was at Hendon, the police college, I think virtually all of my intake would be drinking vast amounts of beer every night, and because we were all sort of fit young lads, it didn't have too much of a physical impact on us. And certainly in the police there was a culture of drinking. Some police stations wasn't drinking wasn't tolerated, and some police stations, such as the one where I was, there was a certain amount of drinking permitted. And it was very hypocritical, and that's the way things were in those days. So I learned to function, and I think there were times when my drinking was worse than at others. But around work it was okay, because I wouldn't be drunk at work, I wouldn't go to work in drink. But I would drink on my rest days, I would drink after work. And I think the worst times for me were family social occasions, weddings, where I'd get drunk and be offensive, to the point of vomiting and all the unpleasant stuff that goes with.
Sounds familiar, Eric.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
So I always knew there was a problem. It really got to its worst when I got to the stage where I'd left the police, I'd retrained as a mental health nurse, not realising that I was the guy that needed help with my mental health. And then I went into this semi-retirement phase, and then retirement. So then I had nothing to do, all day to do it in, plenty of money, and the drink was there, and it ended up all I wanted to do was to drink all day, every day. And, because I believed at that time I couldn't function, I couldn't exist without alcohol, and now I look back at that, and I can't understand how I did function.
Oh, you did, yeah. And what, have you ever sort of, realising that you thought you had a problem in retirement, have you ever thought, right, I need to stop this, and have you tried to do it yourself? Or?
Oh, many times.
How did that go?
Yeah, I could do it. I've sort of quite a strong personality, and if I make my mind up to do something, then, it seems that most things that I set out to achieve, I can. And I did have periods where I thought, because I realised my health was going down the drain. I was, I'm sort of within a normal weight range at the moment, but sort of going back 3 or 4 years, I was 3-4 stone overweight. My blood pressure was constantly through the roof. I was a heart attack or stroke waiting to happen. I'd had a blood test at my GP's at the end of my drinking, not before the end of my drinking, because I always stayed away from the doctor. But my red blood blood cells are oversized and out of shape as a result of the damage that we do to our bone marrow through this disease. I think I'm pretty sure I've had pancreatitis, although I never sort of sought treatment for it. I used to have the night sweats. I used to have the withdrawal shakes in the morning. I mean, physically, my health was going down the pan. And periodically, I would realise that my trousers didn't fit anymore. And as a result, to sort of get back into some sort of shape, I would stop drinking for a while. And I could go 2, 3, 4 months even without having a drink. But I was always hit what we call the sod it button. In fact, some people use a worse term than that.
We can't use that on this radio, Eric.
Yeah, I was mindful of that. I was being very careful there. But I would hit that button pretty hard, and usually it would be about feeling sorry for myself. Here's me making all this effort not to drink and get fit and to be a nice guy. And nobody cares, you know. My wife would say something to upset me or whatever. There would be some excuse. But I was always looking for an excuse to drink again. My heart was never in sobriety because all I wanted to do was drink. I thought drinking was the answer to my problems. In fact, it wasn't.
So what was the final straw then? So it's progressed over the years, it's getting worse and worse, you just want to drink all day. What was the final straw that made you think, I really need to get some help now?
It is progressive, and I got to the stage where I wanted to drink all day, every day. That was my object. And I couldn't drink all day, every day, because I still had to function as a married man. I still had to be, you know, the sort of family person and, you know, have this sort of... Because I had this projection of myself as being a useful person, upstanding member of society, a proper chap. But I wasn't, so I was living this lie constantly. So I'd drink a lot and give myself time to sober up so that when other people came into my life, I would appear to be able to function normally. And part of the process of this disease is that you develop a very high tolerance to alcohol, so you can perform as a normal person and not appear to be intoxicated when in actual fact you are. And I found that there was a very thin line where I could get away with having drunk a lot and not get away with having drunk a lot. And there were a couple of times in the last year of my drinking, my active alcoholism, where my wife came home and found me in a blackout drunk state where I was functioning but not aware of what was going on. And on the first time, first of those 2 times, she came home from work and found me incoherently drunk. I couldn't get a word out, and that came right after one of my 4-month periods of sobriety. Something had happened on that occasion, and I'd hit that button and started drinking. And for some reason, there was a bottle of gin in the house, and gin, you know, because normally I would drink vast quantities of beer and cider, but they say liquor is quicker, and the liquor, you know, got to me on that occasion. And because I hadn't been drinking for 4 months, my wife couldn't understand it. She thought I'd had a stroke. I ended up in A&E, and it was just totally humiliating. And, you know, even after that, you know, I carried on. And the last time I'd been drinking all day, my wife came home, big domestic row. I don't know any of this because I was in blackouts. I was functioning, but I wasn't functioning. The following day, I had no recollection of any of this. But she'd come home, big domestic row, and I don't remember, but I understand that my wife and I think I do remember a bit of it. But my wife and I had a physical fight over the possession of the car keys because I was determined to drive off, to go off and hang myself, in the course of which I might have killed myself, I might not have, but I certainly would have put many other people in danger as a result of, you know, a car accident. And my wife was absolutely heroic. She got the keys, and apparently we spent several hours sat on the sofa together with me explaining to my lovely wife exactly why everything that was wrong with the world was directly her fault, and bringing up resentments from stuff that had happened decades ago, and I mean decades ago. And it was all this absolute rubbish that I've been carrying around with me for years and years. One of the big things in AA is letting go of resentments, and I had so many resentments, so many little niggles and grudges and things that I'd been hanging on to. And, you know, it was one of the things I'm sure that fed my alcoholism.
So that was your, what we call our rock bottom.
Yeah, the rock bottom was waking up in the morning, having a dim recollection of what had gone on the night before, and my wife helpfully having a day off work and filling in the pieces for me.
Yeah.
And I was aware of AA because when I did my mental health nurse training, I'd sat in on an AA meeting, and I thought, well, this definitely isn't for me. But by the time I got there, I was desperate, and I knew I was killing myself at a physical level with my health, and I was killing myself in an emotional and psychological manner because I was constantly waking up with this anxiety depression cycle. I call it living with the death wish, and I was becoming increasingly a suicide risk. And I just realised I had to do something, and that was my rock bottom, and that took me to my first meeting.
So, what was it like walking into your first AA meeting?
Well, I went along. It was in a local Methodist church hall. I did have a go at being a Catholic once, but I'd never been to the Methodist church before. And I went along, and I didn't know where to go because I had been there before, because it was a complex of rooms where I'd taken my children to playgroup when they were very little, but this was in a different part of the setup, and I met a bloke outside, and he said, "Are you looking for a meeting?" And I said, "I think I am looking for a meeting," and he gave me the glad hand of friendship and took me into the meeting, and it was completely different from the perception that I'd had previously. And there were all these people, and I could just feel the goodwill that was being generated by all these people. And because it was my first meeting, they rearranged the agenda so that they could talk about step one, and people were talking about their step one experiences. And step one is basically where you come to the conclusion that you're powerless over alcohol and your life is an utter mess, and that's what step one is all about. And people were just sharing on the basis of that, and there was just so many similarities that I was hearing that I was able in that first meeting to say, yeah, my name is John, I am an alcoholic, and I was able to share some of my story.
Oh, well done, mate. Well done. I think we're going to go to Billy to play your first tune now. Eric, what's the significance of this?
Well, when I was asked to do this thing, I thought of it as Desert Island Discs for Alcoholics, and I chose this one because I had this mythological delusional idea about myself as being the guy that's at the centre of the world and sort of having to fight the good fight on his own and all the rest of it. And my favourite Western film is this film called High Noon with Gary Cooper as the marshal who's has a gang of outlaws coming to get him, and the rest of the town abandons him and leaves him on his own. And it's only his wife, the lovely Grace Kelly, who shoots one of these villains in the back, that's there for him. And I had this illusion that I was on my own. I've come to AA and I found that everybody is here to give me support. So that's the reason why I've chosen this song.
Well done, Eric. Well done.
Do not forsake me, oh my darling, on this our wedding day. Do not forsake me, oh my darling, wait long. I do not know what fate awaits me, I only know I must be brave, and I must face a man who hates me. A liar, coward, a craven coward, a liar, coward in my grave. Oh, to be torn twixt love and duty, supposing I lose my fair-haired beauty, Look at that big hand move along, near in high noon. We made a vow while in state's prison, vowed it would be my life. I'm not afraid of death, but oh, what will I do if you leave me? Do not forsake me, oh my darling. You made that promise as a bride. Do not forsake me, oh my darling. Although you're grieving, I can't be leaving now that I need you by my side. Wait long, wait long, wait long, wait long.
Yeah, we've got to watch that movie now.
Yeah, I want to watch
We've got to
it.
go and watch it.
I need to get rid of the grandkids.
It's about 1939 on it, isn't it?
1950s.
Yeah.
Can I just, I mean, I'm sitting here listening, can I just, and you know this, my situation, I lost my daughter, she was an alcoholic, and I lost my daughter. So what was,
Yeah.
and it interests me, folks' relationships with their children.
Yeah.
So was that
Yeah.
similar
Yeah.
to your wives,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
was it difficult for them?
I think because of the drink thing, I was always a bit detached from my family. You know, it's no good holding resentments, and it's got no good holding resentments against yourself. But I think if I'd been sort of more tuned into the nature of this illness, and I'd had the wit to do something about it at an early age, then I think the life of all of us would have been different in various respects. I think, you know, my wife and I married, and we moved to London. We didn't have a support network, and we had all the issues that all families have around raising kids and finances and buying houses and where you live and work, and you know, there's a lot of pressure on people, and I never realised that you could ask for help. I thought everything was up to me. I was the person that was responsible for the world. I was the person that was responsible for putting the world right, and I could do some of that some of the time, and some stuff in my life I've done very well, some stuff around my family I've done very well, but all too often I've hidden from responsibilities just because I felt overpowered. I felt that I, as a person, didn't have the skills, confidence, resources to you know, put stuff right. What I didn't realise until, unfortunately, so very, very late, that I can hand stuff over. One, that I've got a higher power, which is a sort of spirit of goodness in the world, which if I leave things alone, things will bend towards the right solution of their own accord, or through that intervention. But the other thing is, that's bigger than that, is that other people are also part of this interconnected higher power world, and you can ask for help. And now I've got loads and loads of people I can go to and ask for help and support, and then I'm not on my own. And there was an incident sort of shortly into my sobriety where my wife fell down the side of the Malvern Hills and fractured her skull. And for the first time in my life, I was able to express my feelings about that and to be there for her in, you know, a very real way, and not be hiding in drink and not dodging and not sort of sidestepping the issues, but being there. And it was a life-threatening situation at the time, and she was in hospital for the week, and she potentially had a serious brain injury, but she got through that. But in the past, I haven't been able to deal with all those incidents head on, and I'm sure that's impacted on my 3 grown-up children. And I've got one that's very strong and independent. It's got a brilliant career and lives in London, travels all over the world, and we are very close. and we all get on very well, spend a lot of time together, go away on holiday to France every year. Very, very close, the sort of ideal relationship one would have with a child. I've got another grown-up child that has divorced himself from the family, and I've got another child that is in active addiction himself with gambling, drugs, and various issues. And it's hard, and I don't know. It's just like I don't fully understand the damage I've done to my health. I could have some cancer, alcohol-related cancer that's eating away at me even at this moment. Don't know what I've done, and I don't know the extent of the damage that I've done to other people. I regret it, and I will do what I can to sort of make amends and express how I feel about things, and just to be open, and leave the door open and being there. And doing my best to make things right, but you never really know. You never really know what impact your drinking has had on other people.
Yeah. And that must be difficult, seeing what you've gone through, to see your son or daughter, whichever it is,
it is,
in a situation and thinking, well, but why are you doing it? I've done this. And this is what it's done to me.
Yeah, it is really hard. And you can lead a horse to water, but at the end of the day, everybody's got to make their own decision. Everybody's responsible for their own feelings and their own life. And I'm there for support, and I've been doing everything I can to nudge and point in the direction of the help that is out there. But you can't do it for other people. I mean, I was 63 years old when I went to my first meeting, and there'd been loads and loads of nudges that I'd had in the past that I'd disregarded. I remember going to see my dad one day in Southport, and he must have been in his 70s then, and he was in sort of sheltered accommodation, and he said, I've got this new bloke, he's comes and does a bit of cleaning for me. He says he's a lovely fella. He tells me he's an alcoholic, but he goes to meetings and he's sorting himself out. And my dad said to me, isn't that a wonderful thing that this man should be doing something about his alcoholism? And he's here helping me in the house now, and he's talking about it. He says, isn't that a fantastic thing? And I'm thinking, yeah, that is a fantastic thing. And that was, that was a nudge. That was a nudge that could have pushed me in the right direction if I was open to it. But it stuck in my mind, and it was just one of those little things that was there. And I think that's one of the things that motivates us to come and make this sort of radio programme, is so that people know that it's there, know that there is a solution if you want it, when you're ready for it. And I just hope that's the case with my lad.
I think that's the key, Eric, isn't it? That I had a lot of nudges in my drinking years, and until you actually want it yourself, really want it, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely,
it doesn't work. So tell us how long you've been. How long since your last drink?
It's 2 years and 3 months.
Wow,
pretty much exactly. Yeah. And I would never have thought it was possible.
No.
Wouldn't have thought it was possible. I think I mentioned earlier, I thought that alcohol was absolutely essential to me functioning. And I look back now and I can't understand how I did function with the amount of alcohol that I was drinking.
I think when you're into active alcoholism, though, drink is your life, isn't it? And you can't not imagine a life without it.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely.
Whereas, we prove that there is. So, okay, moving on now then, can we, so you've been in 2 years and 3 months. Can you talk to us about how your life has changed since you came into the fellowship, and how it feels to be a recovering alcoholic, I guess?
I think one of the big things that you do as a recovered alcoholic is putting yourself right with the world. And we have this thing about sort of recognising our defects and the things that we've, try doing your best to put right the things that you've done wrong. And part of it is making amends. And I think part of one of the biggest people I have to make amends to is myself, because I put myself through so much sort of pain in my drinking and did so much damage to my health. And so it's easy. It's easy for me, and I think for most of us, to be hard on ourselves. And I've sort of found a way of letting go of masses and masses of resentments. And I carried so many grudges against various people. But I think the bit, apart from myself, the person that I most owe the amends to is my wife. And I've had sort of many conversations with her, particularly in the early days, about how my drinking affected her. And I was never one of these that was violent or aggressive, particularly, other than fighting over car keys, obviously. But she's told me that the biggest adverse impact on her was my constant dishonesty, and that I would go out of my way to persuade her that I hadn't been drinking when I had been drinking. And to the extent where she would doubt her own sanity. And I think, there's a term for that. It's gaslighting. It's where you sort of persuade somebody to believe that black is white or blue is orange. And I would do that as part of my mechanism for ensuring that I was able to carry on drinking. And, it's abysmal. It is absolutely shocking, because I did that, and I did it knowing that, well, I probably didn't fully take on the impact that would have. So my amends is to be a decent guy, to be a proper husband, and to look after her, and to let her understand how much I love her, and to be a decent guy. And part of my sort of AA routine every morning is to reflect on my drinking, reflect on my step one, how bad things were. And I make two decisions. I make a decision, I'm not going to drink today. And the other decision, I'm going to try and be nice to people. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes when I'm on the golf course, I'm not as nice as I might be.
No, I didn't want to mention that, Eric. Didn't want to mention that at all, Eric. I think, from my own experience, it's only when the fog clears a bit, really, that you look back and you talk about it over the years, you just realise how much damage you've done to them and how badly you've treated your loved ones, and
that's for sure.
It's abysmal, really, it really is. But we don't have to do that anymore.
No.
We don't have to do that anymore. Okay, are we going to play another song, Billy? Eric, do you want to tell us which one this is?
Certainly. The Marseillaise, the French national anthem, sung by a fantastic singer called Muriel Maffau. And she's just got the most fantastic voice. But the reason I chose this is that I've had a difficult relationship at times with my dad, because my dad couldn't comprehend how I'd sort of got things so badly wrong with my education. He was a very aspirational guy. But he was a very angry man when I was growing up. He'd been in the Second World War, and he was a prisoner of war, and he'd come back from Germany weighing 6.5 stone, and he had something that I've had a touch of as well, is post-traumatic stress disorder. And when I was growing up, my perception was that he was a very social, outgoing, friendly guy with the rest of the world, but a very angry man at home, and particularly a very angry man with me. And it's one of the reasons when I went to Leicester, having got thrown out of Polytechnic, I stayed there doing various odd jobs rather than going back to rural Lancashire. I didn't think there was a future for me, but part of that was because of what I perceived to be the hostility of my dad. In actual fact, my dad was a great guy. He was a hero in the war. He was a special forces soldier. He was decorated by the French with the Légion d'honneur. And he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. He was just poorly. He was an angry man for a reason. But he got a handle on that by part of his treatment, his recovery was going back to France and mixing with his comrades for the D-Day commemorations and remembering the guys that got killed and didn't come back in the fight for the liberation of Europe. And he really enjoyed the French military ceremonials and all these things. And obviously, the French national anthem was a big part of that. And it just reminds me of happy times that I had with my dad when, before his death at the age of 92, we were the best of mates.
Wow.
That's the reason why I've chosen this one.
Well done, Eric. Well done.
Allons, enfants de la patrie, le jour de gloire est arrivé. liberté, liberté chérie, convers avec tes défenseurs, convers avec tes défenseurs, sous nos drapeaux, que la victoire courra tes mains accents, que tes ennemis expirants voient ton triomphe et notre gloire. Aux armes citoyens, formez vos bataillons, marchons, marchons, bien sûr, en océan. Aux armes citoyens, formez vos bataillons, marchons, marchons, bien sûr, en
It's all about you, Black Country Extra.
Here we are, AA week, and with David and Declan and guests. Declan, you're going to let us know if people want to get into, if they've listened all week and they want to get in touch to join one of the groups. What's the best thing to do?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways, Billy, to get in touch. If you, anybody, if you can Google or use the search engine of your choice to just search for Alcoholics Anonymous UK, it'll take you to the national web page. And in there, it's got a bunch of information about, basically everything. It covers everything in AA. You've got a live chat as well if you feel the need to speak to somebody. And there's also a meeting finder. So what you can do is you can pop in your postcode in the meeting finder, and it'll give you all the meetings that's close to your area if you really feel the need to go. You can also contact the phone number, which is 0800 9177 650. That's 0800 9177 650.
And are they sort of weekly meetings or monthly meetings, or does it depend?
We've got some, I mean, within the Black Country and
Yeah.
Wyre Forest area, as we call it, the intergroup we're part of, there's 53 meetings a week.
Blimey.
I mean, there are daily ones. Certainly Kidderminster, which is my home group, there's 2 a week there. They're there every day. I mean, and through that link, you could get on a meeting anywhere in the world, any time of the night or day. They're all over the world, so it's always there. There's still some on Zoom from the lockdown, so and they're certainly every day locally. So it's all there for people to get into if they're looking for that help.
Great stuff.
Okay, Eric, thanks for that, and thanks for your choice of songs there. I should imagine you've been around, 2 and a bit years now. You've seen a bit of change in that time. I mean, we've had a bit of a hiccup, haven't we, with the lockdown and everything. How's AA changed, and how did it cope with that in your experience?
Well, having only been in for just over 2 years, I haven't got a huge back involvement with AA. But obviously, when I first started going to AA meetings, when I first started going to AA meetings, there were live meetings, and I was advised when I went to my first meetings that it was a good idea to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. And in those, then there were sort of loads and loads of meetings available to go to any town, and there'd be sort of 1 or 2 or 3 meetings a week. And I found it was very easy to go to a meeting every day, and probably until the lockdown, which is about a year in, I guess, I was doing a meeting every day. And might seem a bit weird, but if you compare it to the amount of time I was drinking, I was actually putting less time into AA than previously I had been had been drinking. So in fact, the lockdown and going to the technology solution gave me a bit of a break from AA, because I didn't sort of take to the computer thing, and I did a couple of Zoom meetings a week, and that was it. So I kept a couple of meetings going, but now that we're back to real-time meetings, I've settled down to a steady 4 meetings a week. I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and sort of devote the rest of my weekend to, just being a nice guy with my family and friends.
Normal stuff.
Trying to be a normal person.
There's nothing wrong with normal.
nothing-
There's
absolutely
nothing
not,
wrong
no.
with normal.
So,
Nothing
the Zoom has brought loads of people into AA, and there's lots
Sure.
of people that are tech savvy, and for lots of people it's been their first experience of AA. And you get all the same wisdom, the sharing, the contacts with other people, the stories, the understanding, the teaching. So, it's a great thing.
Yeah, well, I guess you're, albeit short-term sobriety. I mean, I've known you for those 2 and a bit years. You're living proof that there is a satisfying and enjoyable life after drinking, which is what we don't think when we are drinking. What would you say to people who are out there, hopefully listening to this programme, that are thinking, maybe I'm drinking a bit too much, maybe I've started drinking a bit more in lockdown? What advice would you give them out there?
Well, I think that the message is that when you're ready, it's there, and there is a solution to this thing. It's if you're an alcoholic, you've got an illness. The treatment doesn't come in the form of pills or injections or whatever. It comes in the form of being honest with yourself, being open to other people, finding a different way of living. And, there is a different way of living. It's not painful. It's hugely enjoyable. It's a different take on living. And the other thing that I learned from my wife in the course of all this discourse is that I used to be a really angry man. I didn't realise that I was an angry man, but she couldn't bear watching the news with me because I was so opinionated and dogmatic that she could sense me seething watching the news, and I was just so judgmental about other people, and I was I had all the isms. I don't know. So I've let all that go. Let go of all resentments. Let go, judgments of the people. I try not to make anymore. Just let people be.
Now, I guess with part of Alcohol Awareness Week, I mean, AA is for alcoholics. That just have really got. There might be a lot of people out there who are haven't gone as far down as us, or not as dependent as we are. When you came into AA, did AA diagnose you, or how did that work?
No. Nobody can diagnose you. If there's only one person that knows whether you're an alcoholic, and that is yourself. And I think I'd known I was an alcoholic. It's hard to put a finger on when, but going back many, many years. I deluded myself, and alcoholics are very good at deluding themselves. But I had this notion that I was an exceptional person. The rules didn't apply to me. The world revolved around me, and the rules didn't apply to me because I was different. One of the things that made me different was that I was a big guy and I had a big liver. And therefore, I could take it. And, it's bizarre because I saw everything else dropping off. My blood pressure was, I told you about my list of symptoms.
Sure.
So why my liver should be any different, I just do not know. But, the penny dropped after my last blackout drunk session. The penny dropped. And, it's there for everybody. And, sure, I can look back and think, if only I'd got this sooner, but I didn't, and that's the way it is, and nobody can change that. So I hope by making these programmes, what we're doing is let people know that this is an incremental disease. It doesn't get any better, it can only get worse. And secondly, that there is a solution, and the solution's in your hands, and all it involves is letting go of a little faith, opening your mind to a different way of living, and turning up at a meeting.
Well done. And, given that, you've been 2 and a bit years, 2 years, 3 months, you're still doing 4 meetings a week, though. Haven't you got it yet? Why do you still need to come to meetings? Why do we still need to go to meetings?
I don't know. The reason I go to meetings, because I know this thing will kill me. This thing, if I let this ball slip, if I have another drink, I might not get back in. Because I know from my previous experience, when I was doing the sobriety thing myself on my own, just me and not that pint in my hand. I could start drinking again, think, I'll just have a couple of cans of Guinness today. That'll do me. That'll be lovely. But I know that 2 weeks down the road, I'll be back at square one, and it would be that, if not actually drinking all day every day, the desire to drink all day every day would have been there, and I'd come pretty damn close to that. And I think that the longer that you are sober for, the worse your relapse gets. That's what I've learned from other people. So I can't afford to take my eye off the ball. And part of my regime is sharing with other alcoholics, greeting new people that come to the meetings, sharing my story, and letting them know that, you know, the solution's there. And if you're minded to listen, if you're minded to take it on board, the solution's there for you.
But I think, as you said earlier on, there's no magic pill. There's not a cure, and AA is not a cure for alcoholism.
We're in remission.
We're in remission, and we handle that by doing what we're doing, keep coming to meetings,
Absolutely.
keeping in that fellowship.
Yeah, there's a programme of activity, and that's it. It's just a new way of life, and it's about being honest. It's about being reflective. It's about acknowledging when you've got things wrong and putting things right straight away. It's about just letting go of all the rubbish in your life and keeping it simple, keeping it in the day, and just being in the moment, accepting life and being in the moment.
Yeah, brilliant. Are we about there, Billy, for the next record?
You play the next record, and then it'll give us a minute or so to get everything wrapped up together, won't it? So.
Okay.
This is very, very different to the others as well, isn't it? You've got such a strange choice in your choice of music. There.
Yes, I am strange.
Not as strange as me, mate. I
He's
can
an
tell you that
alky. He's an
now.
alky.
I can tell you, you're not as strange. I don't need to be, and I'm still a bit weird.
I've learned to embrace my strangeness.
That's great. So why Jimmy Cliff then?
Well, it's the lyrics of this one, really. It's just, I mean, I like the sort of soft reggae sort of vibe to it. I'm attracted to that. But it's just the lyrics. It's a very simple lyrics. But the bit that particularly appeals to me now, I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. And that sort of sums up my experience in AA, really. I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to the music. I just think it's a really upbeat way to go out.
Great song, yeah. So, shall we play it then? It's Jimmy Cliff.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had
Jimmy Cliff. That's it then. Right, Sunday is the last one. We can't do it tomorrow because all the sports blokes have nabbed all the time, so we can't do it tomorrow. But we'll do one Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And that sort of finishes off Alcoholics Awareness Week. I mean, you'll be doing others, but certainly
That's
finishes
great,
off
Billy, thanks.
that
And I'd
was
like
me.
to say a big thanks to Eric for coming along and sharing your story with us,
Most
mate. It's
definitely.
inspirational.
Oh, glad you enjoyed it.
It is, thank you. And
It's an absolute privilege.
Yeah.
On behalf of the radio, I mean, there are various people on Black Country Radio and Black Country Extra have listened to them all, and they're just privileged, really, to have the programmes on, really, all of them. Among all the other stuff that's on there, but certainly the AA stuff has been great.
Thanks, Billy.
brilliant.
And enjoy's the wrong word, but I have really enjoyed it. So, you lot, don't forget then, Sunday, 4 o'clock. Actually, that is on the same time as the Armour and Chain, so I shouldn't really be promoting it, but never mind. We'll see you on Sunday.